Good afternoon. So for today's episode of Path, Passion, Purpose by Diane's, I have the pleasure of interviewing Kate Bright. We're going to introduce Kate in a minute. However, I also wanted to say that we are located in the Curious Rooms, which is also fun, of Mount Street Restaurant in Mayfair. So we're back to London to record this episode. Hi Kate, it's a pleasure to have you today here on the podcast.
Thank you for having me and in aircon.
Yeah, because it's very hot in London, so heat wave. So Kate, you have an extremely interesting path for the powerhouse you are and the career you built. And the simple question is how did you get to where you're today? Or what were the pivotal moments, whichever you prefer, that actually changed your path towards this journey and this destiny where you find yourself today?
So I always say that everything about my life and career has been a series of accidents and also mistakes and also failure. And I think the fact that I've embraced so much failure in my life, from not getting into the university that I wanted to, I went through a thing called clearing, which is basically back in the good old days, you sort of take out a newspaper and a highlighter and your destiny is written in the stars as to what's kind of left behind. And that's with no disrespect to Royal Holloway, but I think I look back now and I think that there were some key moments in my life, both in terms of my prior schooling. Getting a music scholarship to a girls' school was one of them. I was at a comprehensive school before that, and it was a really eye-opening moment in my life where, growing up with brothers, there was this whole sort of other world of soaking up information and meeting people. And by the time I got to Royal Holloway to study French, I think the interests that I had around people and communication and getting out into the wider world, even my year abroad, I didn't go to France with a French degree because that would be too logical, but I went to an overseas department in the middle of the Indian Ocean for a year. Wow. So I think the sort of the pathway to me getting into the world that I've gotten into has been I think they call it a squiggly career path. But I think also coming out of university at a time when all of the graduate training schemes that I wanted to take part in were all pulled at that time. So I had to really kind of think on my feet and use the people that I had met along the way and really start to kind of almost that sort of hustle mentality of what is it I'm going to do, what is it that I'm going to enjoy doing, but also what's going to pay the bills. So I was very much thrown into the world of work right from the day after my last exam at Royal Holloway. I was sort of working and started my career as a personal assistant. And I think the biggest sort of transitional moment for me in my first career, as I call it, before I set up the business, was somebody taking the time to say to me that I should do some security training. And that for me was the sort of the kickstart to setting up Umbra.
Okay, so going a step back, you started your career as a PA, and someone in that space said you should go into security. What exactly happened? And then what happened once you did that? Why was that so pivotal?
Yeah, I realised to me it sounds super logical, but sorry, to others it might actually be a little bit of a weird, again, squiggly career. The people that I went to work for right from university were all very high profile. So my first ever job that I got was working in the corporate office of Disney, and I was working for the CEO in the CEO's office. It was a bit like Devil Wears Prada. I was like the 9th assistant, and was sort of it was very much a kind of bun fight, and everyone trying to sort of manage the life of this incredibly busy person. But it was at the time where the business that I was working for was being acquired by Disney. So pretty much the first week, the entire board of Disney sort of descended upon the workplace. So I right from day one, I had this taste of what it was like to work in the fast lane with high performance and margins of error at zero. And then from there went to work for increasingly more high profile and wealthy clients in their what's called family office, but sort of the private offices that sort of manage these clients' wealth and investments and lifestyle. And it wasn't until then I started working with one family who are now still clients, who had their own security team, that I was like, there is this whole other world of protection of not just somebody's life, but also their lifestyle, their reputation. And I was the primary gatekeeper at that time. I think I was really always sort of back to what I said before about love people, love connection, love that idea of sort of communication with people. By then I was learning 3 or 4 different languages based on the sort of nationalities of people that I was working with and around. And I think the opportunity just presented itself because I think when you are somebody who likes that connection and community piece, you're always striving to do more for your community. And in a work environment, that just led me to be singled out by the head of security that I was working for, who set me off on the pathway of going and doing my close protection and bodyguard training. And I credit him every day. He's the biggest ambassador in my life. We still work very closely together. He was the person who said, you know, there is potentially another career pathway for you. And I didn't know what that was going to be, but I think I went into that training thinking, I'm going to enjoy it, I'm going to nail it, front of the class, you know, new pencil case, all that sort of, I'm you know, a closet geek at heart, just don't tell anyone.
I love it, I can relate to that.
But actually being a geek and being top of the class in a training course that you're not expected to be you know, good at, or indeed you're the only person in a class that's of a particular gender, and suddenly I was hooked, because not only was I really good at the sort of practical application of it, because I'd been around these sort of clients for over a decade by then, but actually I really enjoyed it. And I remember the moment we took out our pretend client for our final project, and I had my sort of Madonna headset on and was kind of mic'd up, and I was managing, I had the role as the team leader. And there were a lot of different things I had to consider around taking that person to a venue and keeping them safe. And I do remember, I can look back on that moment, and I remember thinking, there's a place for me in this sector, and there's something I can bring to it. I want to champion the best of the best within it. And yeah, since then, that's till my last breath, I'll champion the global sector that's just a mass of high performing people and services, and has had to evolve really quickly in the last 15, 20 years.
So in a minute, I would love to talk about Umbra International. So you're the founder and CEO of Umbra International, and it's a very fascinating concept that, like, you're building and creating with the company, as well as maybe a little bit about geopolitics and where the world is going. Is that fine? But for the people like myself who don't necessarily have too much experience in the security world, other than saying yesterday I was sitting outside a members club and suddenly someone passed and there was like 5 security guards around him, because in London this happens quite a lot in Mayfair. But what does this world look like, and how did you discover you're so passionate? You were just saying like practical, etc., and not going in your first case, but what about it fascinates you so much or keeps you going? Because I can imagine, as you said, you are probably one of the few women in that world, not to mention leading an organization. How do you keep going? Like, what fascinates you about security? How does security look like, or safety? And how do you keep on going despite an industry which is probably quite harsh? It's 3 questions in one.
Yeah, no, I'm loving it. So firstly, I think let's go back to the being the only in the room, or the one, or the thing. I love being different, and you know, bringing difference to a sector, I think, is one of the biggest challenges, yet the greatest rewards that I've certainly had professionally. I'm one of 6.88% of 16,000 close protection operatives in the UK, so I still keep a current active license, so I'm still able to kind of jump into things as and when needed.
Oh great, I feel so much safer
you're,
now.
You're very safe, very safe. The Badlands of Mayfair. I'm one of 30 of 300 chartered security professionals, because again, when I got the training and started the journey to Umbra, I was like, well, what's the next thing that I can do? And actually, in the last 10 years, I'm really lucky that the sector has really started to professionalise. So I saw the chartered pathway coming up. My family are chartered engineers. I know friends that are chartered surveyors. And I was like, I want a bit of the chartered pathway. And actually, I'm really glad I did it, because it then led me to security governance and sitting on the board of the UK regulator for a while, which was also a really amazing experience to have that sort of operational experience, and also learn and understand how and what good security looks like. And more importantly, I think, to your second question, for me, I'm really clear on my 3 values in life. It's community, protection, and connection. And the protective piece, perhaps that's something that, you know, I think as founders, certainly of businesses, you have to look at where those things have come from. But I think I was really lucky to hit on an industry where the values that I could then articulate later were truly expressed. Protecting someone's time, protecting someone's reputation, protecting someone's digital life, protecting their physical life. This whole opportunity, as I saw it, to be holistic. It didn't matter that I was a woman. It didn't matter that I didn't have military cred. It didn't matter that I came from you know, any sort of background. Actually, the fact that I'd been working with clients for over a decade before was actually my biggest strength. And actually, from a gendered point of view, as an aside, this idea of invisible security was really compelling to me, because I was being asked to do all sorts of projects across the world because of my gender, because I was able to mix up a team and be very, you know, sort of undercover in a sort of, you know, James Bond way, literally invisible. And I think the things that I really champion about the security sector today is that it's embraced me. It's embraced Umbra. It's embraced our approach of really championing the best of the best. But for me, the best and most elegant form of security, not just for private clients, but the legacy that we want to leave, is that it's for everyone. It's holistic. It's not just bodyguards, bug sweeps. That's the sort of technical side of the Hollywood side that, a very small percentage of people in the public eye, politicians, might need that. But that's also normally handled by public protection and police. So there's a real differentiation, I saw it, that there was this opportunity, this wide open goal for me as a woman, because of my difference, to get into rooms that perhaps as a man I may not have gotten into. So I think I'm always glass 3/4 full, that if I'm told no, I'm Irish, Bavarian, Danish, English. So I'll find a way around it if that means that we're going to get the best outcome for a client. And I think you can be hugely commercial, but also still really legacy driven. And that's the thing that this sector's given me. So the man ambassadors, the people like the person who actually sort of said, you need to think about getting the training. I thank them every day. And we have a real sort of attitude of gratitude, and that ethos of paying it forward is hopefully something that we're gonna leave behind, because anyone can set up a private security company or risk management company at the moment. The world is a complex, dangerous, fast-moving perma-crisis place. I think the sort of intellectual approach, and certainly what the world needs, are people who are going to look at the whole person, they're going to look at the whole ecosystem, and then give a strategy and an ongoing piece of work and advisory, not just come in with a fire hose. I absolutely love solving problems, but I actually love more solving problems before they're problems. So I think everything, I'm very lucky, everything has really played to my value system: community, protection, connection, and my love of people, and communication is key, because without that you can't hear what a client wants, see what they need to be safe and feel safe, and then ultimately deliver something that peace of mind is very personal, person to person. So I think I'm just very lucky that I have come into a sector, been welcomed into it, and actually as a business, we pack a punch. We are working with some of the world's most interesting, philanthropic, impactful individuals and their families, and so I get to sit and chat with people who've also founded businesses, and it's quite an existential life that I lead. Sometimes I'm chatting to clients and getting advice about my own business, which is an amazing place to be. So,
and I think this answer ties really nicely into my next question. So what I love about Umbra International is that you're taking a very holistic approach to it, and it's very different than one would imagine when, with no knowledge of the sector, would think about security or safety. Can you tell us a bit more about that? Because I feel it's almost like you're building a community. You're thinking about you're thinking about the person as a 360.
Yep.
Tell us a bit more, because I think it's really amazing what you're building.
Well, that's really kind. I mean, for me also, I reflect back to the person that was managing the client's life when I didn't know, the nuance and the sort of professionalism and the technical capability of the sector. And I wanted to bring and breathe a new life to it, make it simple, strip out some of the acronyms. I love an acronym. I was known as Kate Bright. Kilo Bravo was my phonetic sort of, that's all really fun stuff to sort of play around with. But as a business, we've tried to become acronym free, toolkits, checklists, make sure that we've got a really easy approach that isn't a sort of using words like risk. I try and avoid crisis, risk. Already I'm stressed. Even the word security, for some people, they're like, I don't need security, because they think of it as the sort of the physical pillar. Yeah. So I think the light bulb within the light bulb of my life of moving into this sector was to create a 4-pillar approach. So physical, digital makes sense, because that's the sort of the bleed between your physical life and your digital life. We can't separate the two now. The one impacts the other. That leads into the reputational. It doesn't matter who you are, you have a persona and a professional credibility that you want to protect. So reputational security for me is a really important part of the 4. And then this 4th one, and you and I have spoken a lot about this, and I think this was my most daring, could have been seen as a gauntlet to the sector, to say that emotional security is the 4th pillar of holistic, secure lifestyle. What do I even mean by that? Well, now with 27 years behind me, I can tell you that if you're not physically, mentally and cognitively aware, you're not going to see risk in the right way. You're going to be disproportionate, you're going to be paranoid when you don't need to be, and worse still, you're not going to see things or be situationally aware across those 4 pillars. So for us, the starting question to a client is, how safe do you feel, but also how are you? Where are you at? What are you going through? And some of the big change events that that our clients go through are really positive ones. They're selling companies. A liquidity event should be a really happy moment for a client. A succession moment, someone handing a family business to another generation of a family should be just this incredibly positive experience. But change moments change that perception, alter that perception of safety and security, and therefore those are times when things can go wrong, not least of which some of the reactive problems that can occur. But whether we're going in as a fire hose and putting things out, or whether we're going in as really slow time strategists to talk about what peace of mind looks like, doesn't matter. 4 pillars, checklists, toolkits. It's like a sort of mantra-based approach, because there's nothing that can't be picked up, in my experience now, both technical, operational, and from a sort of more of a governance and family council. I'm asked to go and present risk at boards and talk about the kind of range of things that we say unknown unknowns and known knowns. And there are more unknown unknowns in life now. But if I went in and presented that would just be a horrible experience for everybody. So actually giving tangible things that our clients can actually do on a day-to-day basis. And ironically, they're the things that anybody can do. So what we're trying to do is democratize this world, strip out acronyms. Security simple is good security. Security where people don't understand words and are sort of secretly not really understanding what's going on, that's not where Umbra sits. It's about making it accessible, proportionate. It's about peace of mind. And your emotional security is a reflection of how safe you're going to feel ultimately.
And I really love your holistic approach to how you're building your organization. And we talked a lot about the emotional security part. And recently I was at the Next Gen conference, and someone mentioned, which came to me while we were talking, the term, I inherited violently. And actually violently would be something about security. And growing up, I saw...
Violently?
Violently, that were the words used.
Gosh, that's very visceral.
Yeah, and I completely can relate to the person's story because I know them. But growing up, I also very often felt that in a certain world, there's more paranoia. Yeah. And if you don't address, and sometimes it's granted and sometimes it's exactly mental health more related. And if you don't address that part while you're thinking about your client exactly in a holistic way and how safe do they feel, I think you're not doing the full job. And that's why I really respect what you're doing. For me, currently, where I'm mostly scared with is actually the technical element.
Right.
Personally. So like,
what scares you the most?
I was about to ask you about all these questions, but I feel this is almost a higher level answer, that with AGI as a tool, we all love it and it's helping us a lot, but the trajectory of it, if it goes, and we had the pleasure to interview for the podcast individuals who are leading authorities in that area as a higher level of where it can go.
Yeah.
At least a good portion of the 80 plus top individuals in that area in the world are giving a very, very dark answer if it's dark. And I feel because of the way currently the financial system is led and who is in charge of that, we may not be bringing enough ethics and morals, and just where's the human in this equation? Yes. Even on a lower level, like where's the economy going? Where's the labor market going? So to your unknown unknowns, I think it's an extremely high unknown.
Yes.
But even on a lower level, cybersecurity, just if someone attacks even my company, we can function for 3 days or 3 weeks or for however long. Like the technical aspect of security for me is very important, because I'm blessed at least to live in countries where physically I don't feel very often unsafe. And I spend a lot of time on my emotional health. So the technical one is where I just too many unknowns for me.
Yeah.
And if something goes wrong, what do I do? Which is why I think it's so important that for certain individuals, they have someone on their phone number like you to dial.
Yeah.
Because then you really need immediately expert advice, or you could be in quite a lot of trouble. But I want to turn this question around to you. And I mentioned earlier that I would like to ask you about what are you most concerned with where the world is right now headed? Like when you don't like risk, but if you were to mention like 3 to 5 risks, what are the things you're paying attention to be prepared so you can then deliver it to your clients?
So firstly, I'm a risk hunter. So I'm more likely to look for things that are emerging. I'm really fascinated by how risk is evolving. And I have no fear of the unknown, because I think the again, going back to the sort of the mantras around controlling the controllables, there are, on a continuum, things that we can do to control our responses to things that we just have absolutely no control over. I prefer to take my clients into, as part psychologist, part secure lifestyle advisor. The psychology of fear can override common sense. And I'm not walking in your shoes. So I'm sitting at your side of the table to talk to you about how you feel, but also what your professional and personal goals are, what your setup is, who are you concerned about? Is it you? Is it concentric? Is it your inner circle? I think once we start to have a dialogue, I think this takes me to one of the things I think I'm saying like 8 times a day at the moment, which is I back amazing humans. And I think we forget in all of the post-tech age that we've been here a long time. We've been around for a long time. And we're just going to have to be more exceptional. We've created all this stuff. So actually, if to the hypothesis that if you are emotionally secure, you're able to be more risk resilient, I just want to be around more and more exceptional humans that understand that. So that's my sort of, I think you could start to kind of cut out some of the noise when you then go into what is it I can control on a daily basis, almost going to some of the work that I know you and I have both done around who we are, why we're here, purpose, vision, clarity, the physical, mental, cognitive health, and the biases we have around what is there to fear. Some of the AI-backed technology that exists, for example, in some technical security setups, CCTV. I mean, the horse is bolted. We're talking like 8 years ago this stuff was integrated. And actually, I think it's quite useful to know the difference in camera resolution between a badger and a human crawling on the floor trying to come and break into your home. So I'm probably, as a risk hunter in my sector, the worst person to ask, because I'll always throw it back to the client and say, well, how prepared are we? How much are we taking a proactive, preemptive approach? How much are we wargaming? And not just wargaming as a risk management profession. This is, I think, one of the most important parts of my light bulb moment in the last, particularly post-pandemic, is that there's an advisory village around our clients, and we just were naturally included in conversations around liquidity and succession and all of the kind of, I put them as the positive change events. Imagine as risk management, we're just working in our little silo, and we're, locking down a client, putting them in an ivory castle, and, VPNs everywhere. So there's no sort of, no real sort of understanding, and also a little sniff of situational awareness to understand when something isn't right, and actually, as a human, make a decision as to not going down that street or not clicking on that link. That is within all of our gifts. But it depends upon who we have around us as a wider advisor sort of village, if you like. But again, I don't ever want to be too undemocratic in that. And I think it's something that all of us have people around us giving us advice. I personally don't take my media and news and consume from any one source. I'm really selective about what I listen to, what I read, who I listen to, who I find credible. And I craft my own narrative around what I need to know, both from a business perspective and also from a personal and development perspective. So I'm not really answering your question other than, for me, all we can control is what we can control. And that starts within us. And as the post-technological age evolves, I back humans from the start of time to the end of whatever time is the end of time. Very existential conversation. In that we're always going to need humans in the loop, as is shown in the AGI age, as is shown by technology. It's only when it goes wrong we then need to have a human understand, explain it, and put it right again. So I don't know if I've really answered that question, other than the fact that in my profession there are a number of things that we can all be doing on a daily basis. Low pro bono tools, toolkits, and checklists that, if you just adopt a proactive posture, as we call it, and just keep an idea of a continuum of looking at your 4 pillars, looking at the things and also the people around you, people that you care about, your community. One of the things I said to a client the other day when we were putting in a residential security team, I said, we're going to ensure that they are part of the community WhatsApp group. Why? Explain why we're doing this. Well, we can then have wider information and intelligence about what's happening. If somebody's being broken into, that's really useful for us to know so that we can then readjust accordingly. And actually this idea of community safety and community proactivity is something I'm really passionate about, and I won't bore you with the local area. I am the co-chair of my Safer Neighbourhood policing team, of course I am, but more so because I'm absolutely obsessed with the idea that people relying on public safety to keep them safe. So you rely anywhere in the world on the police, right? That workforce is contracting, full stop. It's just a fact. If the private security sector is growing, but yet we can't then hire and keep up with the demand, where does that leave individual responsibility? I think it's to all of us to be part of community safety programs. I think it's to all of us to be able to share information if something doesn't feel right. The rise of things like the Nextdoor app. Police in the UK are using that app to soak up intelligence about what's happening in neighbourhoods, to be able to allocate resources. That for me it makes me come alive, because every single person is then responsible for each other's safety. And situational awareness is one thing, but bystander training, first aid training, these are things that the St John's Ambulance here in the UK, sign yourself up. It's, if not free, then the best value education that you'll have to look after your own health, but also be that person that can step in case something goes wrong. I just think that for me is a really compelling way of coping with this sort of, I think it feels like 2009 meets, did you remember the millennium, everything's going to fall out the sky, meets, I've been around a few decades. It feels like a lot of those things all coming together now, but I see all the opportunity, and I see all the human opportunity for us to all come together.
I'm going to make an assumption that you have many high-stakes situations to deal with nevertheless. Is that correct?
Yeah, of course. And high stakes can mean different things to different people, but yeah.
And true to your name, you feel truly bright. Every time I see you, every time you walk into the room, I just feel like the sunshine coming in, right?
Very kind, thank you.
With everything you do, how do you keep this positivity and this energy so high, on a personal level?
Emotional security, the pillars, the checklist, the toolkits. I've built a business where I get to try all the things that I recommend to clients. Nothing that I'm telling my clients to do isn't something that I haven't tried. Lots of negatives there. I'm basically a human guinea pig for particularly the longevity and the wellness community that I have stumbled my way into. And by the way, as somebody who at 45, in my 20s, particularly living and working internationally, there was no, lunchtime spinning class and matcha lattes. So I'm very much late to the party. But all of the things that I think I do now come from having worked out exactly why I was put on this earth. And I know that sounds really,
I believe
and I tell you what, there was a moment when I think it was hitting 40, that's a sort of midlife crisis moment anyway, but I was shown a picture of this thing called ikigai, and it's these concentric rings around your mission, your purpose, your profession, and your vocation. And at the same time, I was given an aura ring. So it was a really weird 40, kind of sort of heralding this new kind of phase of my life where you're more tired, and growing a business, an international business across time zones is not for the faint-hearted. And any founder out there, it's huge, huge respect. And risk. You've got all the kind of components for adrenal failure and burnout. And I think what I've enjoyed and where I have derived the most energy is actually coming from a very high performance family and hanging around with lots of high performing elite mindset people from sport, from military, law enforcement. I've kind of picked and cherry picked the things that I really find useful and that energize me. And also I've doubled down on my own work, both business coaching, therapy coaching. Mm-hmm. I think if you look at yourself objectively as the physical, the mental and the cognitive, which I do, the cognitive I'm obsessed with. Any chance I can drag a client into a hyperbaric oxygen chamber for a 45-minute chat, everyone's winning from that. Mm-hmm. They're trapped talking to me about any problems that they've got, and I get the residual benefit of high pressurized oxygen. So I think for me, I'm really lucky again. When you work out what your purpose is, I think a lot of that helps you to withstand some of the things that, like we've just said before, the unknown unknowns are so powerfully strong. Even for me, I can get overwhelmed by thinking about the possibilities and all the things that can go wrong. And we were talking before about things like the UK government's preparedness and resilience framework that we're going to be sort of circulating to more broadly to our clients, but also our wider community in terms of content. Things that you can do to prepare yourself. These are things that I think should be part of the daily sort of business as usual of your life. And I guess because of the community protection connection loop, it took me a lot of work to work that out, by the way. It's a sort of four-year process. But as soon as that sort of dropped for me, decisions are easier to make. So the inbound stuff that I'm asked to do now, the platform that we've built as a business, the team that have stuck around me for the last 4 or 5 years, incredible what you can do when you've got great people around you. So firstly, it's not just me. There's Team Umbra is like, an incredible selection of some of the most high-performing people that I will ever have the pleasure to work with, who are all working under the Umbra umbrella. Like, I am the lucky one. A proactive, preemptive approach to my health. I can't live like I was living in my 20s, nor do I want to. And actually, there's more work to be done. And I think from our family sort of story, there's another gear shift for me. I see that I'm here to do some quite powerful work. And I think the people that you meet, such as yourself, along that journey presents opportunities that I don't think we would have had 5, 10, 15, certainly 20 years ago. So to be in touch with your gut and your instincts of what feels right as you're growing a business, I think the energy comes from making mistakes, failing really quickly. I think that's the key thing. You can get so bogged down in what hasn't gone right, certainly in risk management, but I think a combination of all those factors and hitting a bit of a 40 moment in my life where just these little interventions came in at the right time. I will talk about emotional security for the rest of my life. There's blogs, there's things that I do, there's products that I've tried and tested and can say to you that, Headstrong, a mushroom supplement that was set up by a 25-year-old founder, I take it every day. I'll take it every day until he gets his business sold, and I will talk about his business because it's given me the edge and energy, all the way through to other people and services and products that have helped me through this journey, and I'm lucky enough to try and to say hand on heart they work. So I think growing in that confidence and also getting older, it's the combination of that. But I'll take that and makeup. There we go.
I would love to ask you some more questions. I'm really curious about the products that you're taking and your research, and also what are the other methods that you are using yourself.
So I follow a lot of the sort of pre-biohacking, post-biohacking wellness longevity sort of, I can call it the trend, but also now the sort of the lifestyle that I've seen pop up. And I have to thank things like Instagram for serving and feeding me the various different products that I've met along the way, including the Headstrong supplement I take every day, which is a functional mushroom supplement. That's the only one I've found that has all of the different mushrooms in one, and cognitive function wise, it is literally the bomb. For me, the mornings are getting out in sunlight. So you can have fancy lamps and lights, which I do have for the winter. The sad lamp at home, sad lamp in the office. A 3-step sad lamp, which is a UMBRA German brand lamp. Morning sunlight tells your body that you're going to go to sleep in probably 12 hours time. That is one of the biggest things that for me, certainly from a woman's health point of view, but I think for anybody, mood, how your day's set up, how your sleep's going to be. Your sleep starts from when you wake up, and that's the James Nestor book. Matthew Walker book called Sleep, which flipped the back page. That's 18 steps about how to have great sleep. Sleep in itself, sleep hygiene, there's lots of products and things that, from the orthopedic mattress that I use, orthopedic pillows, very, very low temperature, blackout blinds. My sleep is like a sort of military precision. I sleep with a pillow on my head. That's a whole other story. I like a dark and quiet sleep. And I think we can over-supplement and we can over-productize our lives. If you get the functional basics right, discovering breath work for me was just a kind of a complete no-brainer. The Aura Ring, that I will champion till my last breath, which also has a lot of the links to Headspace app. So if you're particularly stressed, it'll flash up and it'll give you a suggestion of something to kind of like loosen you and chill you down in terms of breath work. Specific products, In the morning, I have a mushroom coffee on top of my mushroom supplement called Space Goods. Again, another young founder who I've followed his journey all the way through. I tried to ditch coffee to go to matcha. That's my little, little nod to caffeine in the morning, just to kind of rev the engine. And Davinia Taylor, I'm really into her, and also Ancient and Brave, all of their supplements. I didn't realise how important collagen is, not just for sort of from a hair, skin, nails, and a sort of aging point of view, but actually bones, bone density. That for me now, vitamin D, B, and my magnesium at night are, that they travel in little pots. I take them everywhere I go. And the Ancient and Brave's new collagen in one sort of pouch sample. It's got to be easy for me, like the Headstrong. It's in a sealable bag, so I can literally shove it in the rucksack wherever I am in the world and make sure I keep up with my schedule. And then it's just loads of protein, whatever age you are, particularly again with the woman's lens. I'm in my 40s. Protein, lifting weights. I like feeling strong. Reformer Pilates, once a month business coaching, once a month therapy. What else in my whistle-stop tour of the things that I do? Great friendships and a great family around me that I can connect with. I think one of the biggest things I learned about cognitive health is loneliness is the biggest precursor of dementia. And I will say that in any room, because it was such a powerful, when I heard that, I was like, my God. And you can be on such a founder journey of like drive and grow, actually keeping people around you that know you. So catching up with my best friend from school from when I was 11 this weekend is a great example. It's actually shown in brain and neuroscience studies that's really good for your brain to help to sort of rewire and focusing on that nervous system. So didn't know what a nervous system was until about 5 years ago. With the stress that I'm sort of self under most days, how now I can move myself into from the sort of sympathetic to the parasympathetic nervous system. I'm using data and I'm using all sorts of different tools and toolkits. An amazing place called Grey Wolf in Barnes that have all manner of the different kind of neuroscience-backed kit, but also they are bang into their sort of the sort of more holistic treatments and from reflexology since time began, yoga, all of the things that connect us back to our sense of self. You're not going to outrun a bad diet, but you can't biohack your way out of chronic stress. And I know, because I've been at burnout, touched it, embraced it, actually put myself into the fire so that I know when to pull myself back, and I credit some of those tactics in keeping me relatively on the right path.
So I just want to thank you for all the great work you're doing, and also the perspective you're bringing to your industry and to what you're doing, and for taking the time today to talk to us. And I feel like we need to continue this conversation on another podcast in the future.
Love to. No, thank you for giving me the platform. Genuinely, it's a real honor.